I'm going to give some context into what the Excel Center is, why we picked this model, and why not something else, because there were a lot of things to choose from, and there was a lot of research and effort that went into this by some people who are really, really smart. And then, why does this thing work, right? And what are some of the outcomes about that? But before we get into some of those things, the real power of talking about the Excel Center usually comes when we have people tour our schools and they get to meet our students, and it's powerful. And I couldn't bring them with me because they're in class. So I brought one on video, and the woman you're going to meet is a recent graduate, and I hopefully you'll get a little sense of her journey.
I just was going through a time in my life where I was like, I want to work, but I don't want to go back to my previous job. Not that it wasn't a nice job, and not that they didn't have benefits, it's just I was never going to be able to make enough pay to help my husband. My mother always encouraged me to go back to school. Denise, you're smart. Always do it. There's nothing in this world that's going to stop you. I'm here for you. You can do it. For some reason, I just kept coming back to this flyer that I had found in the house months ago about the Excel Center that came through the mail. And one day I called the number and I went up to the school that day. They gave me a tour. June of 2014 is when class started. So I earned my high school diploma in a little over about a year. Yeah, I just never thought that I'd be a high school graduate. And then working, to have a job where I don't make minimum wage and I'm able to help support my family. Look, you could go to anybody at the school. It doesn't even matter if they're a math teacher or an English teacher. It doesn't matter what subject it is that you need help with. You could go to Miss Dion, which is an English teacher, and be like, I need help. Can you please help me in this math? And she's going to help you. There was not one teacher there and didn't lend a hand out. When they knew that you just went down, you weren't yourself, hey, what's going on with you? Are you gonna be okay? So they were there, they were our cheerleaders. And because they were so positive, they really made us feel positive. And I earned my certification in medical assistant. So I am a certified medical assistant. I dropped my daughter off at school and then I'd go in 9 o'clock in the morning until 4. I was there for class, and then from 5 to 10 I was there for certification. So, yeah, and I did that for 4 months. So it was hard, but it's okay, it was worth it now. There is a program that the Excel Center has. It's called Talent Source, and basically their job is to mold you into career ready. They help me get with do an interview properly without, feeling nervous or super insecure about myself. Actually, my first interview was with Heckman. I finally got an email back, and I was like, oh my God, I got the job! So, yeah, and then I started in here probably about, I'd say a week and a half later. We're always going to have hurdles and obstacles in our life. And it's up to us to break down that barrier and figure out what we need to do to get past it. That way we can accomplish the goals in life that we have. For me, it was realizing that my lack of education was hurting myself and my family. Going to the Excel Center, they have child care there. So if child care is something that's a hurdle for you, you don't have to worry about it. You can bring your child to school with you, and they'll watch your child for free as long as you're in class. If transportation is that problem, they provide bus passes. So they give you every opportunity to be there, and you just have to commit. So a lot of times our pride can get in the way, and you just have to swallow that pride and do what you gotta do. A year and a half or a year of school, that's great. I have my high school diploma. I get ready to walk across stage with the cap and a gown. And then, that's awesome.
We started in 2010. There is no long history of the Excel Center. This is not going to take very long. We started in 10, one location in Indianapolis with 300 students. We did this and I'll get into a little bit later, but we had a lot of studies going on all the interrelationships of things. At the same time, the city of Indianapolis was going through a realization that we had this huge dropout problem. Our main school system, Indianapolis Public Schools, had roughly a 50% graduation rate. And even worse than that if you looked at different segments of their population. And they knew they had to do something with that. Indianapolis has a reputation as this, this kind of glittering downtown and in some broken down neighborhoods. And they were never going to come back unless you fix the educational attainment. And so we came up with the idea, pitched it to them. They said, that's great, go do something. Today, 5 years later, we have 12 Indiana schools and over 3,500 students. So it's been explosive growth in the state of Indiana. In 2013, we started going outside of the state and licensing it, and primarily with other Goodwill organizations. So we have 2 outside of Indiana now. We have Austin, Texas, and in Memphis, Tennessee. Austin opened 2 years ago. They tripled in size this year. They went from 150 students to 500 in a single year, which at the time they thought was an awesome idea. They're still digesting 500 students as they go through it. And in Memphis, just opened this year with 350 students. And then we have 3 additional cities, Little Rock, Arkansas, Washington, D.C., I just blanked on one, Baltimore are coming online next year. So we've got more expansion taking place outside of Indiana. And as Sam and Courtney were down just a couple weeks ago, we hosted 21 Goodwill organizations from across the country who are coming in and interested in this. So, and you all are one of those and a prime one. And I would say that the chance of success here is almost greater than a lot of other places because of Transform Rockford. It's rare, and I don't know if you all realize this being part of it, that you have this energy that's taking place about doing something about a multitude of the issues. And I think that the vision that Bobby read is when you hear that, you go, well, let's sign up. And this could be a part of that. And that's really why we're here tonight, to talk about this. So what's an Excel Center? So it is a high school. It's not a GED program. This is a high school diploma with all the same rules, all the same regulations everybody else has. We just get there a little bit differently, right? Because we're working with adults. We're working with adults who have lives. They have children. They have, some case, jobs. Most don't, but they want to have jobs. And so you have to work very, very differently than putting them into a high school that says, okay, here you go. If you have 0 credits, it's going to take you 4 years. That will never be successful, right? It's, what they say, insanity is, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the same or different results. Well, so we changed the equation. We do a year-round schedule. We do 5 8-week terms a year. So think of it as 5 semesters in a year. We do classes in the morning, the afternoon, and evening. Most of our students come morning and afternoon. Some just come in the morning, some just in the afternoon, some just in the evening, depending on what they have going on in their life. We combine classes. We do all kinds of things from a curriculum standpoint. If you got education people in here, love to talk to you afterwards. We do some interesting things to accelerate. At the same time, it has to be rigorous because we know that the goal is to get people ready for work or post-secondary, which means it's not a diploma factory. Childcare is a staple on site that's there and it's free to them while they come in. That is a huge barrier. Our student population is 60 to 70% female, and more than half of those are parenting with elementary age children or below. And so to have that available to them is a huge barrier removal for them to allow them to come in. Transportation assistance, again, we utilize in Indianapolis public transportation, which if you've been to Indianapolis and ridden the bus system, it's not the greatest transportation system in the world, but they work really well with us and they try hard. That's about all I'll put to that. Life coaching, barrier removal, and I'll get to a little bit more of this. Students don't drop out because they're not smart. Right? Denise, you heard her say when her mom kept telling her she's really, really smart. She really is. She's had all these other issues going on in her life that prevented her from being successful in school the first time and in subsequent attempts. So the life coaching is there to take people and go, okay, let's look at what's going on. What's causing you to not be successful? Because it's not your intelligence, and it's not your desire. It's something underneath. And so it's getting through to that, and then helping them become better problem solvers, They do some things, you'd expect. They connect them to social services and things that they might need throughout the community. But they're also an accountability person. So life coaching, we talked about the barrier removal. And as I said before, that target is a rigorous high school diploma. Anything less is cheating. Cheating the students, cheating the state, cheating the community. It has to be rigorous. This has to be real, right? And I think that's something that the students know as soon as they walk in the door. Is this real or not? Is this high school? Because that's what I want. We have students come to us with a GED. They say, I want more than that, right? And sometimes it's because I promised my mom or my dad or my grandma. Or I've tried to get a job and I'm really struggling to get that, and I'm just not getting there. So it's a real high school diploma, it's rigorous, and again, as Mark talked, it's combined with an industry certification or dual credit, right? Because some of our students are younger and they want to go on to college. So we do that combination with them and make sure they walk across our stage with more than just a high school diploma. And finally, making sure they're work ready, the soft skills that they need in order to go into a job, because most of them have not held a job that would be what you would think of as a full-time regular job, right? Not that working fast food and service industry isn't regular, but it's different. And it's that job where you're going to work in. In Indianapolis, we have a lot of logistics and manufacturing, right, as you guys have with manufacturing here. That's a work environment, and you have to be prepared for that. And if you're going to work it like Denise is, as she mentioned, Eskenazi Hospital, it's one of our large hospital chains in Indianapolis. She's working in neighborhood health clinics. The certified medical assistants work side by side with a doctor. If you don't have the soft skills, you will not last a week, right? Especially, I don't know if you have any doctors in here, but sometimes doctors have some demands and some quirks every once in a while. So why this model instead of a GED? I get this question. This is probably the most asked question I get over and over again. And at the surface level, you look at it, the GED or the equivalency is usually faster. You're studying for a test versus taking high school classes. It's commonly allowed and funded across every state, right? We've not really run into a single state yet where you can't actually get funding to take for the GED preparation. And in some states even will actually grant you a diploma when you get a GED. They say, well, it's the same. Our decision came about, as I talked about, we were doing research, and this goes back to 2008 when we were looking at the issues. And we had some really smart people studying this whole idea of how are all these social issues linked, right? Because we're Goodwill. We deal with people who come to us because of one of these things, right? They've been incarcerated, they've been unemployed, they've had a drug or alcohol abuse problem. All these things come in our front door. And frankly, we got tired of just repeating the same old thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? Insanity. And so we said, let's look at what's going on underneath this. And so we started looking at the relationship between all this. And as you might imagine, each of these influences the other, right? If you have a higher poverty area, generally you're going to find educational attainment in the area is less. You're going to find that crime is more. You're going to find that the health of the people there is going to go down. And you can put like sliders on these. If you slide one up, you'll see things move on the others. So that was really important to us, which may say, how much research did it take you to figure that out there, Sherlock, right? But it took us a while. We're in Indiana, a little slower. But while we were doing that research, we came across a highly influential body of research that made our decision for us. And that was from James Heckman, who's an economist from the University of Chicago, a Nobel Prize winner, right? So he's not just some guy. And his findings that he had done over multiple studies going back into the late 90s and extending up through the 2000s, and is still doing this work today, was that the social issues of GED recipients look no different than those of dropouts over time, which means the employment, the health, the incarceration, the drug and alcohol abuse, all of those, the wages, over time, they're virtually indistinguishable from each other. And so we had, as you might imagine, because we ran what we thought was a highly successful GED program. I was actually in charge of it, right? I'm like, whoa, this can't be true. And we started looking at the whole idea of activities versus outcome. If you think of the activity as getting the GED, the outcome is what happens to the person. And this research was a 2x4 across our forehead. And so as we looked at it, and again, if you think about it, again, very few people use a GED as a springboard to post-secondary. Now, with the exception, as Mike, the idea that if you package a GED with post-secondary certification, then you've got something. But very few people are doing that to scale across the country. And Heckman's conclusion was that some of these limited opportunities were due to the fact that the GED recipients really had deficits in those non-cognitive skills. Right? They just didn't get the soft skills, didn't get the, as he put in there, which is very common today, grit and persistence. And not to insult anybody's high school experience, but mine was, I think, very similar to most. A lot of high school is just persevering. Right? It's getting through all the stuff that they make you go through. College is even more that way, right? And if you can persevere, that tends to actually translate really, really well to employment and higher attainment. Each one's a step. And so the actual act of going through high school, turns out, is really, really important. Because Heckman's original thesis going way, way back was, if the GED is really an equivalency, and it costs way, way less than a diploma, why are we spending all this money on high school? Right? Why would we do that? And the answer was, well, because high school turns out to be really important when it comes to all these predictors. So that's why we focused on a diploma. And the question is, how's it going, right? So 5 years in, we have over 1,400 graduates. Actually, that number will go up. Actually, after today, we have the end of our term today, and we should pick up about another 150 graduates from this 8-week segment here today. So we've had over 1,100 post-secondary credentials earned by those graduates. And if you look at on the left there, that graph, those are the graduates who earn college credit, and we've gotten better at this, right? So if you go back to the 11-12, there's 44%. Then we hit 57, then we hit 79%. Last year, we were at 92% of our graduates had in hand, walking across the stage, a post-secondary credential. 92%. And remember, this is a population entirely comprised of people who had quit high school. This is not creaming the crop. This is everybody who walked in our door, walking across our stage, 92%. The graduates per school year, if you go back to 10-11, our first year, you see 4. That was when I was pretty sure I was going to get fired. You think, well, on that one slide, you said you had started with 300 students, and you graduated 4. It's like, oh, man. Luckily, we had a really, really, and I'm speaking specifically to the Goodwill board members here, we had a very supportive, patient board who said, it'll come. And then, as you can see, it did. Right? Now, part of that was because we grew. The number of graduates went up. But interestingly enough, if the last two, between 13-14 and 14-15, we didn't grow. We had 9 schools at that point in time. We went from 376 to 677 in a single year. We're getting better at it, right? You get better at knowing what happens. We have this huge data analytics things that helps us really predict and analyze and look at all that stuff. And so we got better every single year at it. We should this year be up over 750 to 800 graduates. If we hit that point, if we hit 800, we will be the largest graduating class in the state of Indiana. Think about that, right? And in some of the communities we're in, we have 6 of them in Indianapolis now, but the other 5 that we have, and then we have one in South Bend, which is actually not ours. It's Goodwill, Michiana, but that's too much minutia for you. But we have 5 that are in smaller communities that are 50,000 people and below. And what's interesting in those communities especially, we're starting to graduate between 80 and 100 people a year. The mayors and the city council members and the leaders of those communities are saying they are starting to notice. They're feeling the impact. Because all of a sudden, their high school graduates, their high school, right, typically is a single high school, somewhere around 200 to 250 students in that high school that would normally graduate. All of a sudden, we're throwing out another 100 on top. And they're feeling it in their, again, these are all blue collar, Indiana, mainly manufacturing. They're noticing it in the job applicants. They're noticing it in the quality of people, and they're noticing it, interestingly enough, in the reduction in public assistance. that's hitting all the different agencies because people now are employed and have jobs. So that's an interesting thing that really hits those, especially those smaller communities. Now, those are activities, right? Our interest has always been about outcomes. What's happening to this? So if you look at this, we're looking at increased educational attainment, and again, positive impact to both employment and wages, which then also, if you go back earlier, right, leads to decreases in incarceration, drug and alcohol abuse, all those kinds of things that are associated with it. So on the bottom here, we had this graph or the chart. Dr. Michael Hicks is one of the leading economists in the state of Indiana. He's used really heavily in the manufacturing and logistics industry to do studies. He's also, again, just as for you people who study Indiana, we have a supermajority Republican, or majority super in the House and the Senate, right? So the Democrats could not come, and they would still do everything they wanted to do, right? So it's a very conservative, Republican-dominated legislature. Dr. Hicks is the leading economist used by the Republican Party. So not being any dummies, we said, Dr. Hicks, would you do this economic impact analysis for us? Right? Help us understand what's actually happening to our graduates. So we gave to him our first few hundred graduates. So here they are. He went to the State Department of Workforce Development and said, okay, I want their data, wage and employment, 6 months before they started, and then what's the latest you got? So this is kind of the gold standard of wage and labor data, right? This is not survey, anecdotal, right? This is the state saying, here's what employers have reported to us. And what he found for a graduate was that their total benefit per capita, right? So the average wage increase per person is about $9,330. That's the first job after graduation. Think about that, what that means to a person who was unemployed or was employed only part-time. And now all of a sudden they have this full-time job, their first job, they're making $9,300 more a year. And oh, by the way, the average age of our graduates is 23. They're going to do this for 40 years. The state's going to feel that. Right? So we have used that data, as you might imagine, as we've gone into the legislature and talked to our folks. This is very impactful, especially if you're talking to a financially and socially conservative legislature. This is real. This is not, again, we didn't make this up. This was their economist who helped us come up with these numbers. And so as we've looked at that, and actually if you look at the bottom, he had a control group of dropouts who had never attended an Excel Center, and he found that over the same time period, their wages, because of the lingering impact of the Great Recession, actually decreased by $2,300. That's what the expected outcome would have been. So the delta is almost $12,000 a year. We're getting ready to refresh this study as we go after this year. This next summer, we'll do a refresh on this where we'll have now thousands of graduates instead of a few hundred. So we're anxious to see what happens, especially those that have been out now for 4 or 5 years. The other one we did, and this is survey-based, which is our 2013-14 graduates. What happened to them? And so at entry, and this was, everybody fills out this survey, it's kind of part of our orientation, 73% were unemployed on entry. A year later, 88% are either employed or in college, or both. Right? We get a lot of part-time employment, part-time college. Think about that, 73% unemployed to 88% who are doing something positive as they move forward. That's an outcome, right? And that's what we look at as this. And particularly when you think about, one thing that hits me every time, particularly when I walk past our drop-in centers, our daycares, national stats say that the child of a dropout is 50% more likely to themselves drop out of high school. And, which is related to this, the child of a high school graduate who has any post-secondary, went to college for a semester, got a certification, any post-secondary, only has a 5% chance of dropping out. Think of the dual generation impact. When you think of 2025, think of those little kids who are now in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, their parents getting a diploma, and the impact to your graduation rates in 2025, right? And it's a 2-for-1 deal. By educating a parent, supporting the child, you get a double bounce off of that. Why? We've talked about relationships, and I'd say anyone who comes through feels it. It's relationships with our coaches, certainly. Every student gets assigned to a life coach, and they stay with that life coach throughout. We have extended class periods, which sounds funny when you're talking about relationships, but it means teachers only teaching really 4 periods a day at most. They're 90 minutes long or 3 hours long. They establish a relationship with those students in their class. This is not a 45-minute drive-by content delivery. This is real interaction between teacher and student, and our students feel it. And again, everyone who comes through says that's a huge part of our culture. And if you walk through one of our centers and talk to our students, you'll walk away in 20 minutes going, how do you get that relationship thing going on? Because that's what drives it. The rigor, again, we talked about face-to-face instruction, the accelerated pace. You know, again, someone who comes in with 0 credits will never wait 4 years to get a diploma. 2 years out. If they're an English language learner, maybe 3. But that's the outside of it. You've got to do things differently to move them along quicker. And then finally, you have to have a relevance to what are you going to do next? Everybody comes to us saying, I'm coming because I want to get my diploma. That lasts about that long because that's hard. And in and of itself, it may not mean anything to them. But if you can connect it to what are you going to do next? College, military, work. And how is this relevant to that? Now you got something. And you get people engaged in certification classes while they're still getting their high school diploma. And they're accelerating through it, and all of a sudden they can see the end. We do 8-week terms because 8 weeks is not that long. Right? You get started, you get moving, it starts to get hard, but then I'm about halfway done. Then it's really hard and it's really a drag, but you only got a week or 2 left, and then you got a week off. And then we have work experience. We do a lot of internships, and we have a growing reputation throughout the state with that.
Now let's celebrate this historic day by welcoming the first graduating class of the Goodwill Excel Center, the class of 2015. On this day, we celebrate 43 graduates, 43 committed individuals who have made the choice to re-engage in their educational journey in order to advance their lives and the lives of their family. We applaud your choice.
The Goodwill Excel Center is part of my dream. It was created and exists for people just like me, and earning this diploma today gives me the opportunity to set an example for our children to stay in school and succeed. Today we graduate, now let's keep going. Thank
You know, today is a great day for you. The kinds of things that you have to go through, even going forward, you won't be able to do without great passion. You were courageous and you expressed it, you demonstrated it by being here today. And today, what is in your hand is that diploma. This is you did it. Take the courage, go far farther. Coordinate, go even further. And my friends, that's all that we have to do.
When I learned that I could earn my high school diploma at the age of 36, it was like a light bulb went off. A door was opened. This diploma was earned through the Goodwill Excel Center. It's powerful. It turns what we once only dreamed about into reality. Let's inspire our friends, family members, children, and neighbors to become empowered through education. It's a historical day for all of us. We're graduating.
Transformational change is not easy. It's a choice we have all made, and it's a brave choice, because education is foundational for a career path, and because you're worth it. Remember that you're a message. You are a living letter from your heart to the world. You're a message from the Excel Center to the world. Your hard work, your dreams, and your persistence have made you into something new, something really powerful. You have the tools. I know you have the passion and the path is your own.
I am so humbled that our vision has grown into this. It's grown into you. This is part of the foundation of our mission, what you're seeing today. It's an illustration of our vision to get over 100,000 disenfranchised Texans working in good jobs over the next 10 years. That's what our plan is. It is my honor to pronounce you the first ever graduates of the Goodwill Excel Center. Move your tassels to the left. And if you want to throw those hats, let them fly. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Goodwill Excel Center class of 2015.
That's what it can be, right? You see those 43 people, and they had 150 students. They actually bragged because they just blew us away with their opening year numbers, like, fine, so you're better than us, okay? Everything's bigger in Texas, yeah, I get it. But I challenge them, okay, if you got 500, then now the bar is higher, and they'll hit it. But if you looked at those faces, right, they're from Austin, but I know you have faces like that here, and you can see them. I think every one of you is probably making an association right now with someone you know, because it's almost like everybody knows a dropout or they know someone who does. And you make that connection, and you saw in the speeches, I was there, I was glad they didn't put some parts of the speeches there because I'd be crying again. It was impossible. You look around and everybody, all these big tough Texans, right? And it was all over. So that's the essence of the Excel Center. Thank you.